Welcome in, everybody. Happy Thursday. That means it's SPL day, and it's always going to be a good Thursday then, especially today. It's a debut day for a couple different teams. Renegades getting their first opportunity to play it all, and Splice with their brand new roster. To talk about it all, I've got Anatoly with me here on the desk, going to be joining me all day. It's going to be a good one, Toly, particularly here in our first one. I mean, Renegades have been waiting for so long to get a chance to play.
A lot of question marks to figure out what they're going to be able to do, but right now, looking at Trifecta versus Renegades should be a good warm-up match. Trifecta have been struggling a lot, currently 0-4.
Yeah, it's been a rough one for Trifecta as we can take a look at the standings and see exactly where they sit in comparison to everybody else so far in the SPL. They are at the bottom, even below Luminosity because of the plus-minus. Renegades hovering at 7th because they haven't played a set quite yet, but that will end right after this. They're going to play first thing here today. Splice, the defending world champions, 0-2 so far, but that was with their old World Championship roster. Now they've got their new team still full of world champions with Scream and Venenu joining them, but I'm sure we'll have plenty of time to go over all of that when we get to the second set of the day. As for the first set today, I think that let's focus first on Trifecta and the way that they've been playing. 0-4, obviously not the record they want,
Sure.
but have they had moments where they look like they can still compete?
They definitely have. Their early game pressure has just been phenomenal. I think that Eonic invading several times has been the thorn in a lot of different teams' sides that they're trying to pluck away. Their issue, Trifecta, have been their objective control in that mid to late game, the shot calling, same way Space Station Gaming of old struggled.
Sure, yeah, and that caused roster changes over there for that roster, so you know how important that can be. But overall, I think that Weekend in particular has really stood out. A lot of people around the scene are talking about how well he has played so far this season. And when your jungler is going well, feels like to me it's only a matter of time until the rest of the team start to follow.
I think that mechanically Weekend has stepped it up. Probably the best performance mechanically Weekend has ever had from any SPL season, and it's been thriving occasionally. Not enough to find victories, almost finding a set victory over Space Station Gaming that was struggling, but up against the likes of SK, they lost to them, lost to E United and Pittsburgh Knights. This is a must-win for Trifecta against Renegades that haven't had that much time to practice together.
All the other teams they've played, though, have been really, really strong. I mean, I think that this, outside of Space Station, which I believe was a 5-game set with them, that took them a long time to lose. I mean, they were playing well. I think that this is the closest competition to Space Station that Trifecta's had, and they looked pretty good in that set, so shouldn't they theoretically look good here?
They should, especially against Renegades, where you don't really know what they're going to be able to throw at you. So it's going to be tricky because at one point, yes, they haven't practiced that much Renegades compared to every other team, but you don't know what they're going to bring to the table. There's no footage on them. So unless you've been scrimming them and know what they're going to bring out, good luck to Trifecta.
Yeah, I mean, and with Renegades being over in Europe, I'm sure Trifecta has not been scrimming them ever since the season started and they all moved here. So it definitely is going to be a challenge for them, but I think that with Coach Kassir there, I mean, everyone on Trifecta has been talking about such a big difference that he has made, and maybe that's going to be enough to help them through.
It's possible. Picks and bans is going to matter a lot for these two teams, specifically in the dual lane between Eonic and Wowy up against iRaffer and Funballer. Funballer known to play aggressive. Wowy's just trying to kind of farm it up for the most part, playing a lot of Jingwei, so that could be a focal point, is that Jingwei pick.
Yeah, I mean, Wowy has been one where I think that he's had score lines that have looked pretty impressive, but has his impact on the game really been there is the question.
Definitely not compared to most other hunters, specifically Zatman. We saw what he was able to do up against Dignitas, but Wowy needs to step it up today up against Funballer.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be a tough one for him. Funball certainly a pretty good matchup if you want to start to fight, because Funball very much known for being aggressive in that duo lane. How about the other side of the map? Nika is one that I think a lot of people had question marks last year, and he kind of answered those for the most part. What about Ducky in that matchup?
I think these two players know each other very well, inside and out. Nika and Ducky, the former SK solo laner up against the former Mouse solo laner. So they've had a lot of history of battles throughout the wars together. I'm expecting a lot of mind game between these two players. I don't necessarily know where they're going to go in their picks and bans, but I'm expecting more of the Guardians for both of them, trying to make the bigger impact in team fights.
Yeah, Ducky, former teammates with Funball on the other side. I mean, that's something that you think, is that fun to go up against some of your former teammates like that?
I think so. I think there's a little bit of, like, you want to show up a little bit, like, stick it to them, like, hey, we should have been together still. You know, like
yeah,
kind of sticking to
just be like, yeah, if you would have stuck with me, we were the ones doing stuff over here, and see if that actually ends up working out. Trifecta certainly looking for their first set victory here today. And the one player we haven't really talked about for them is Lasbra in the mid lane, and he's been doing pretty well by my estimation for his first split in the mid lane.
I think mechanically he's looked fine. I think there's been some question marks of his positioning on Agni. This one specific game, I can't recall exactly who he was against, but he was getting focus fired a lot. And when he was getting focus fired, he struggled behind 2-3 levels. That's been a consistent strategy from some teams to deploy against Trifecta. I'm not sure if that's the direction Renegades want to go today.
Weekend and the rest of Trifecta looking for their first Zet victory up against the Renegades. We've got Weekend standing by for the pregame interview.
Tom Battinger here with Weekend, the jungler for Trifecta. Now, you guys are coming off not a great 0-4 so far. Renegades, though, they haven't played at all. Are you guys looking at this as an opportunity to take advantage and bring home the win?
I mean, we definitely plan on winning. We kind of have both sides of the stick here. They haven't played for, 9 weeks or whatever, so they are going to be rusty. They aren't going to be up to date on everything. But we also don't know what they're going to play, so we'll see.
You guys have, even in the losses, looked kind of successful. And honestly, just being straight up, it's been off a performance from you. How do you plan to keep that momentum going?
I mean, our early game's really good. Our mid game and late games where we fall off bad calls or something, we've worked on that the last couple weeks, 3 weeks straight, just nonstop mid game, late game fighting. We're ready.
I mean, it worked for some of the other teams out here. Hopefully that allows you to bring home the victory here. You said before that there's not much to go off of with respect to Renegades. Is there anything that you guys know that you're looking into?
I mean, I expect Cherryo to play as Guardians, which, I mean, I've played against them before. I know what to expect. I don't expect big things. I think I'm going to outplay him, so we'll see.
There it is. Confidence words coming out from the jungler. Back to you guys.
Thank you, Tom and Weekend. Kurt never one to doubt himself, and I think that really serves him and the rest of Trifecta very well.
He's a very confident player. You know, playing with Cyclone Spin back in Season 2, also Allied, Incon, and Kiki in the AFK days, his glory days of Season 2, I think he stepped it up since Season 2. He's learned a lot playing against different kinds of styles, such as the Cherryo Guardian, because it's funny that he mentions Guardian Jungle, because he brought that out back in the day. The Athena Jungle, the Khepri Jungle, the Kumbhakarna Jungles, and of course, the famous 667 Odin Jungle.
Yeah, we stay away from some of the Guardian jungles these days for Weekend. It's much more about the Serket and the Pele and gods like that. But the other side, I mean, he's not wrong, I think, to talk about Cherryo in his usual god pool. He's one that I think a lot of people are very, very excited to see how he can perform consistently on land.
Whether it's the Ymir or the Kabrakan, you never really know what direction Cherryo is going to go, because he can also play the Assassins outside of the Guardians. And in the Assassin role, he's mostly known for the Hunbats and the Naja.
That's right. I mean, those two are his default Assassin picks, but is he going to stick to those now? I mean, the Naja is something that I think you basically have to respect if you're on Trifecta here. Just as we don't really know what's happening for him, right? I mean, that's the one I think I would be most scared of by default, even before the Guardians.
Yeah, that's right. Season 5 with his mouse days. This is before he switched to the Guardian role once Frostiak joined inevitably later on. So he has a lot of skills on the Assassins. Doesn't always have to be the Hunbats and Naja.
Cherry definitely the one of the vocal leaders on this team, I would say. I mean, him and iRaffer, I imagine, are going to be doing the majority of the shot calling for this squad. Cherryo's a pretty vocal player.
He definitely is, but I'm expecting iRaffer to be that leader that Renegades needs, because iRaffer has so much experience, 2 world titles to himself, having basically constructed energy from the ground up with himself. I think that if anyone's making the calls, it's got to be iRaffer.
Now, you're the Renegades correspondent for Esports Weekly. You talk to these guys more than any of us. You mentioned on Esports Weekly yesterday that Funball and iRaffer have been really working on their synergy together.
They have. They've been living together. They're all in the same complex, all 5 of them, but having 2 different units where the dual lane is together and then the 3 core mouse members on the opposite side. And from the short amount of time that they have been scrimming, they've been clicking.
It seems to be working for them so far. We'll see if it ends up happening here in the SPL. To get a perspective from Funballer on how the Renegades are feeling, we've got FDOT standing by.
Hey, what's up, guys? One more time here, but I'm next to Funball. First time we're seeing you. Welcome.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Better late than never. You guys, Renegades, finally showing up here. You guys have been practicing a lot, though, over the past couple of days. What kind of preparation, how prepared are you for today? Rough stuff. Really, really rough stuff, huh? All right. Well, that said, how have scrims been going? You guys have been here for a couple of days. Uh-oh. That doesn't sound too good. Are there any bright sides for you guys coming up? Sounds about right. Well, the Renegades coming in confident might not be the phrase. We'll see how these guys do in their debut. Good luck.
Wise words from Funball right there with F. This team's going to have their fun, is the way that I imagine it going. I mean, these guys like to play their own style and also have fun if that's what they consider that.
Actions speak louder than words at the end of the day, and Funballer is actually very active in that duo lane. So I'm expecting him to pick an aggressive god and look to try to exploit Wowy, maybe find an advantage for that lane so that Renegades can snowball off of it.
I mean, they've had their time to consider exactly what they're going to be doing up against Trifecta. They've been looking forward to this match forever, it feels like at this point, all of Season 6. And I feel like Trifecta's one that can be difficult to prepare for in one way because they're so early game focused that maybe they might pick some later game gods and let their naturally strong early game carry them through. Maybe they'll lean into it. It can be difficult to kind of predict. Yeah. We don't have to predict any longer because picks and bans are ready for game number 1 between these two squads. It is Trifecta in that first pick position, and automatically I'm looking towards Ratatoskr for Weekend. That's been such a big prioritization in the early game for multiple teams.
I could definitely see that. Ratatoskr is just so popular for not only Weekend but everyone else. It's such a great early game global pressure jungler when you can upgrade that Acorn without having to back to base. That gives you an opportunity to maybe look for a play around the opponent's respawning speed buff.
Now Freya the ban, that's an early game god and one that Funballer is particularly known for. In fact, one of their only victories for SK Gaming last year was because of a cheeky Freya pick from Funballer. Different kit back then, well, mostly the same, but a little bit of difference. And now it's the Xbalanque really focusing out what Funballer could bring in that duo lane.
I think Renegade's not going to ban away the Arthur. They're either going to take away the Achilles or the Jormungandr. I don't think they necessarily mind King Arthur going through. Ducky, known for his aggression from time to time, but he's, I think, better off in more Guardian / teamfight control presence gods, and they do go for that option.
Yeah, Ducky's gotten the King Arthur a couple times and hasn't really torn it up with it, and so usually when that happens, you default to letting it through, because now Trifecta has a choice. Do we either give it to Ducky and see if he can improve his performance on it, or do we get a priority pick for ourselves? And it looks like Renegades have an opportunity to get that King Arthur, because it isn't the Ratatoskr, it's the Serket as the first pick for Trifecta.
I'm not really sure how much Ratatoskr Cherryo plays, but we definitely know he plays Serket. So that's a smart pick. Also, Weekend loves this assassin pick. I thought for sure that Trifecta was going to lean on the Achilles a little bit, but now that they left both Arthur and Achilles open, that could be something Renegades go for. Two very aggressive warriors, just no hesitation, snapping that one off.
And that Achilles could be in the support role for iRaffer, could be in the jungle for Cherryo. Hard to really say. I don't think we'll see King Arthur anywhere else but the solo lane. And I think the same could be said for Serket. In her flexibility, I imagine that this is open for Eonic if he so chooses. I think Trifecta could still go for Ratatoskr, though I imagine they would be in the second phase so that you could try and pull some bans out of Renegades that aren't really that relevant to you.
Very possible. That could be one option to go for, but can we just say poor Ducky, man, constantly going against King Arthur. I think if you look at any player in the solo lane out of the SPL, he's probably had to face against King Arthur the most, and now he doesn't even have a decent matchup by going for the Achilles. He's going to have to probably either go for the Bologna, Osiris, maybe Camazotz if he wants to.
They're going to wait on it, though. It's Hachiman and Discordia for Wowy and Lasbra, respectively. Lasbra has played a lot of Discordia so far, and it fits with Trifecta's idea of a good early game because that Discordia passive ends up helping out quite a bit. But I think I would have liked a Discordia and Camazotz pairing. Camazotz with a Discordia passive it's impossible to outtrade him.
Definitely, especially once you get higher levels. I'm not in love with Camazotz's team fighting presence, but great in the laning phase in terms of surviving against King Arthur, maybe even finding a kill against King Arthur. If that is weakened Serket jungle, that could be another idea to have him lean into that matchup of Ducky up against Nika.
Dardez on your screen, the mid laner for Renegades. Didn't get a really chance to talk about his transition over from ADC after transitioning from support. Now in the mid lane for this squad, still waiting on his selection so far, but one that I think a lot of people are excited about is Dardez's potential in the mid lane.
I'm excited to see it too. Going from support to hunter, I think that it took a little bit of time for him to feel truly comfortable. He's known for his mechanics, he's known for being aggressive, which is why he's done like warrior supports, assassin supports, most importantly well known for his Nox support. Being able to hit that silence root combination is what led Mouse to so many victories, but something that we have seen from time to time is this Poseidon pick. Surprised to see it over the Raijin, however.
Yeah, Raijin would have been pretty decent here, I think. It brings you more early pressure, but Serket is all about the mobility, and so you get the Whirlpool to lock that down. I think that's the game plan here for the Renegades. Just a matter of how much CC Dardez will have to set him up, because it's pretty tough to catch Serket with a just Whirlpool out of nowhere.
I think another good thing Poseidon kind of brings is like preventing the enemy team from going Terra in the future. And I'm expecting maybe Renegades to pick that one up. It could also be Achilles in the jungle with Arthur in the soul lane. Terra support for Renegades would be pretty solid, but if you're looking for setup with Poseidon and you're looking for support to do that, I think Kumbhakarna might be your best option.
I was thinking Athena for iRaffer. I mean, Athena Poseidon is a combo that is time-tested, certainly works almost all the time and feels really, really strong, but Athena a little bit out of the meta right now, I would say, as a couple Guardians banned away by Trifecta, Geb, and the Kabrakan, in case that is a Achilles in the support role. As Thor being hovered here for Cherryo, I'd imagine, though. iRaffer, I think, has played Thor support before.
Yes, and he was a jungler way back when, even before Season 2, so wouldn't be surprised if it is Thor support. Thor support now in Season 6, I like that idea, because imagine a Thor support going in 1v2 against the enemy's speed buff, that passive, 10 additional power for every nearby enemy god. You get 20 extra power, they're not going to be able to trade with you.
No, that's not a bad point. You definitely can make that play work, but it's going to be Hun Bats instead. So good identification by Trifecta that Achilles was not slotted in right away in that jungle role. Ended up moving over to support. Renegade still could be looking for a hunter. Still going to be looking for a hunter. Could be something like the Chronos in order to balance themselves out, but they have to wait and see what Trifecta wants to do. Nox being hovered, a little Nox support would go a long way for the CC, but it is pretty risky. It's hard to execute.
It is hard to execute, but if you can just disrupt Poseidon from doing his combination, or Hunbats potentially after he drops Fear No Evil, that's not a bad idea. Also mitigating a lot of damage by dropping that Nox ultimate. And I think Renegades' composition is purely damage. They're all trying to do it to allow the Achilles to get that fatal strike off.
Could also be good against the King Arthur, who has slow damage that kind of builds up over time. Nox will interrupt all of that and would bring plenty of CC. This Trifecta comp seems pretty well equipped, actually, to kill King Arthur the more I look at it. Serket great at shutting down his healing and CC combos. Discordia can cripple him. If this is a Nox now for Eonic, that is even more lockdown in CC. The problem that I'm seeing, Tully, is that it's all single target CC. There's not a lot of group, Athena taunts or Sylvana assaults or anything like that that can really get a lot of people grouped up at the same time.
I mean, Serket can technically CC 2 targets with her Cobra's Kiss. Discordia, if she hits 2 with a Strife, applies the Madness effect. Probably one of the greatest forms of CC if you can land that ability. Nox will actually get selected. Could probably go to Eonic.
Oh, Nemesis is the final selection. That's going to be Nemesis solo, right, for Ducky?
You know what? It might be Nox solo against the Arthur.
Oh,
So
Nemesis support or Serket support, Nemesis jungle.
That's what I'm thinking.
That'd be pretty interesting. I also think that, as you mentioned, Ducky's played against King Arthur more than anybody, so he should have been experimenting on gods that do pretty well in that matchup, right?
Probably. I was actually going to take note of when the Giannis was being hovered over. I thought in the back of my mind, like, what if this is Poseidon ADC? But no, it's not going to be. It's going to be the soul for Funballer.
If someone's going to do it, it's probably going to be Funball. That's the type of pick that he likes to go for. So Renegades do balance out their composition with a magical ADC, most likely, I would imagine, in the ADC role, though I guess it doesn't stop you from going Poseidon ADC at this point. Here for the Renegades. Trifecta, lots of CC, and then a Nemesis ultimate to really follow up off of that.
I like it.
But if Renegades just start deathballing at Trifecta, I'm worried about their ability to handle it.
It's spicy for both teams. I'm excited to see who starts off the action first, because that's going to dictate the pacing.
The Renegades with their debut here in the SPL. Game 1 for them. Finally, we've been waiting for a while to say that. Let's throw it over to the casters to see the Renegades debut.
Thanks so much, Desk. And yeah, the most interesting thing about this is not a single Guardian in either of these lineups.
What are you talking about? I mean, Nox or Nemesis looks like a perfectly capable Guardian, and Achilles, what better support play could you possibly ask for?
Is this the reason we're seeing no Guardians here for the supports? Is this because we're going to see a little bit more of this, you know, the support may start in the duo in the solo lane, and that gives a bit more pressure with a different guard?
I think that there's definitely flexibility there for starts for sure, but I also think that it just comes down to raw playstyle between these two teams. These are two very aggressive rosters in my eyes, at least the players that are established on the teams. I mean, iRaffer, who screams Achilles support, honestly, when you look at the guy. It's just so conventional for his style of play. He loves being right on top of the carries, and I think that Renegades can definitely afford to be a little bit more reckless against Trifecta here.
And that's the question coming into this. What would you like Trifecta to do in this set, Taco, overall? Like, you know, you're against this Renegade squad. They're a little bit out of practice. They've not had as much as some of the others. Their real scrim environment has been against the minor league teams from Europe for the most part while the beginning. What would you do if you were Trifecta's coach today saying, hey, we're going to this set, what's the plan?
Well, I think that's exactly why Trifecta have thrown Eonic onto the Circuit support. Eonic really loves the idea of just slowing down the enemy jungler, and so any little bit that he can contribute to try and be a nuisance, he's going to take.
Well, at the start of this one, you saw exactly how the beginning of this game began. Weekend started the speed buff alongside Lasbra and then swings around to the red buff on the left-hand side. iRaffer, meanwhile, started towards the speed buff and then transitions to blue alongside Nika. So it's a 2v1 in the solo lane, and it's solo lane Nox. Against Arthur? I guess that's the reason, right? Because, you know, Arthur can't use abilities if he can't
silence everything. That is definitely the mentality here for Trifecta, but Ducky has, without a doubt, had to play against King Arthur more than any other SPL solo laner at this point. I'm pretty sure he's had to play against it every single set, at least one time for Trifecta. They let it go through, at least through one of those matches. And if Ducky's on point with the Nox combinations, Eonic actually going to blink over the wall, some aggression onto Cherryo early on, and those oracles were stolen by Trifecta.
Not only that, they get the beads out of Cherryo too, and no real surprise to see Cherryo go for beads in this matchup. Normally you like to see the junglers go for the blink option, but when you've got the likes of the CC that Trifecta are bringing, it makes sense to go for the beads.
Eonic, though, with such an aggressive blink early on, that means that this support isn't going to have a shell or a sprint, something to kind of help better assist with pressure. And Ducky, I'm actually liking what I've seen so far out of this Nox possibility.
It's only level 2. He hit a combo, that's what you saw. And you're already like, hey, this Nox solo seems to be
think about
working.
it when the Nox gets some damage online.
True. And that's the question, will Nika have to go a little bit more defensive overall? I mean, normally you'd like the Gladiator shield on a King Arthur for the sustain, but it might be a bit trickier. And talking about trickiness, Nika's going to get ganked here by Weekend. Slow comes into play, but a knock-up after the fact from Nika at the tail end causes a problem. Silence slowed him down, but it didn't connect for damage, just the route after the fact.
Shadowlock's definitely not going to be enough to bring down Nika anytime soon, but I like the idea. Weekend already giving presence in solo kind of alludes to the fact that there could be a potential solo camp going on, so that might cause for Cherryo to try and make some adjustments. And Cherryo, one thing's for sure, he's going to have to stay on top of that blue buff, really ensure to his solo laner that Weekend's not going to be interfering with Nika's farm.
Cherryo's already over there, drops that blue buff down for Nika to be able to resustain up. Weekend and Ducky will split the experience of the blue on this side, as meanwhile left of the map, Lasbra and Eonic going to pick up the red buff too. Both hunters left unchecked so far, or I should say Mage and Hunter and Funballer and Wowy here, as it's going to be the solve this game.
And I think that's what's best for Wowy. Wowy feels like one of the key members, I think, for helping to carry Trifecta through sets, and whenever he gets off to a really good start is usually when Trifecta is able to also look their best in mid and jungle, because Lasbra, he's done a pretty solid job so far, mechanically speaking, but I think that he definitely still needs to get the experience in, and all of these consistent sets of mid-game play have definitely been significant improvements over time for him.
Well, I did speak to Lasbra before this earlier this week, and he did say we've got our plans in place and our strategies we want to pull out. It did give me an idea that there might be something interesting going on, but I didn't expect it this much in terms of, well, High-level execution composition, I will say. Very much a single-target burst, and that could be a little bit worrisome as the game continues. Really, Discord is the one that's got the AoE to an extent.
I think I'm most concerned about the fact that Nika's going to have so much sustain in those mid to late game team fights that I'm not really certain who's to be the designated member for bringing him down, because the level of investment that you normally have to provide to kill a King Arthur in an engagement doesn't usually go without some form of consequence. And Renegades, with that in mind, I think that's why they threw iRaffer onto the Achilles support, something that could definitely dive very heavily into Trifecta should they look to invest every resource on Nika.
You saw the stripe come out there from Lasbra in the mid lane, just looking to catch Renegades on that rotation from the Oracles. But it will give an idea that there's a ward somewhere in that area to Renegades, so they'll be aware of going around that corner again. One thing about the compositions again, Taco, just looking through them, I think Renegades could just build health in this game and not have to worry too much. I mean, health is going to be very useful against the likes of Weaken and the likes of Eonic, who are going to be, you know, they're looking for shred most of the time, or like ignore the protections. So build health and you might be okay.
But there is a lot of heavy crowd control for Trifecta
Yes.
in comparison to Renegades. They're really only working around the Fear No Evils, possibly Whirlpool if Dardez decides to look for a gem of isolation. Nika, one more time though, gonna avoid that Siphon Darkness, gets hit with a Shadow Lock, and immediately ulti Eonic into the air.
More importantly, Nika there, the kiss came out from Eonic on that gank attempt, but the ultimate just ignored that for the most part and got him into the ultimate and make sure the gank attempt fails. But there we're seeing it a couple of times now. Trifecta continuously going back to this solo lane, trying to put pressure onto Nika. And every time Eonic goes to the right-hand side, Weaken turns up left. Every time Weaken goes to the right-hand side, Eonic is on the left-hand side. Eonic right now, though, dealing with Cherryo in the jungle. He loses one of those right-hand harpies, but Weaken still looking for Funballer here.
And Weaken is steadily building an experience lead over Cherryo because he's got Eonic to just harass Cherryo on his jungle pathway. Funballer as well, going to have to invest in the Saturate to escape, but Eonic actually gone a little bit too deep there into Renegade's territory. Going to find Dardez's Kraken and the Fountain for first blood.
Really well played by Renegades, just noticing the window of opportunity there. Eonic thought he was going to get away with a bit of cheeky farm, knowing that the other side of the map was busy, but it didn't work out in the end. Nice Kraken from Dardez, and that's the first mid-lane kill for Dardez in his new role entering the Pro League this year.
I think Dardez is trying to see how many different roles he can play.
Yeah, he's catching up. He's catching up, that's for sure. There's a few players around now that have been in multiple roles over time. No one's ever done all 5, though. I've seen players do 4 before, but there's never been a 5th.
Kiki's closest, I believe.
I think he is, yeah, definitely. Definitely, especially in terms of players that are currently actively playing. Kiki has done all but... Which role Kiki not done?
I don't think he's played Hunter.
I thought he played a game or 2 as it. Maybe I'm wrong.
I
swear he probably has. Maybe season
subbed.
4, something like that. We don't know. I'll check into it, but he might be the closest
I mean, other than
one to
that,
all
it would have to be Jungle.
5. That's true. Maybe it's Jungle. I think he's played Hunter, but not Jungle. There we go. That makes more sense to me.
Jungle might be, yeah, Jungle might be the one.
We're talking about Kiki from Luminosity, so we'll see how he does later on this week. Anyway, so far so good for the Renegades. Their first active game. They get themselves first blood, but they could be in trouble here. Eonic managed to whip round behind them and actually got the beads out of Dardez on that gank attempt there, so it was successful overall.
First time that we've seen Trifecta really have any follow opportunities. Now with Dardez not having his purification beads, he's going to have to hug his tower line a little bit closer. iRaffer as well, probably going to be a bit more attentive towards his mid laner since he is currently vulnerable. I think that Trifecta are definitely struggling though with finding a big enough front line or a tanky enough member that can really continue the engagement.
Well, we'll see what Trifecta can do with their builds. At the moment, Eonic looks like he may be going for Golden Eye Thebes, or at least something health-related here on this circuit at the moment. Meanwhile, iRaffer gone for the Winged Blade early on. Obviously against a Nemesis, this can make a lot of sense.
I think iRaffer just wants to ensure that he's not going to be the sole focus here for Weekend, because typically it is the supports that are made the target against Nemesis-based compositions, and for good reason. I mean, Nemesis is the tank killer.
And that's all you have to do, and just shred down the tank, or at least steal the protections from it. So seeing iRaffer go for the Winged Blade, nice bit of health, nice bit of cooldown reduction, and that passive just going to remove, well, ignore slows to an extent and speed you up. which can get you out a bit of danger. Right inside, Ducky at level 10 so far, Nika at level 9. This is what you kind of expect with how the matchup's been. Ducky just looking to farm up, Nika just looking for kills if he can. But the jungler and support from Trifecta have been causing him a bit of trouble, and that's why he's a bit behind in that lane.
I like this, though, from Ducky. He's just biding his time, trying to make sure, oh, I thought the iRaffer could be in a little bit of trouble here, but a nice Kraken from Dardez is going to ensure that there's no follow-up.
Cherryo did get hit by the ultimate of Eonic, but it's Eonic on the run away. Nika's trying to cut off the path around the Fire Giant near the Totem of Coup. There's a ward there, though, so Eonic should be aware, so he'll dash towards the Tier 1 tower. Cooldowns are not available just yet. Eonic should get one up soon. Can Nika secure, and he will do with the long-range shot. Second kill for Renegades, first for Nika.
But both of these deaths have been onto Eonic, and if there's somebody that I'm totally cool with dying for Trifecta, it's Eonic. He's the support, and I think right now we are in a meta where supports can honestly afford to die as many times as they want to.
Can we stop saying that?
I really do think it's true.
No, because everyone's going to take it to the games and like, yeah, don't worry about the support, just let him die again. Don't mind that you just saved 5 of us, like, just let him die.
All he has to do is connect a Cobra's Kiss and a Last Breath, and it's up to Trifecta to find the rest. Of course, it's... No, you know, I'm not trying to make it sound like, you know, it doesn't matter at all that Eonic dies.
You all ignore us support players, you know? You all pretend that we just exist for your sake.
I mean, kinda, yeah.
Yeah, I know. It hurts, you know? That's all.
Take one for the team.
We always do! That's the problem! Ducky up against Nika a little bit more. Nika gets the ultimate off on Ducky this time. With the silence being down, Ducky can't continue the trade and has to back away. Eonic could fall for his third death there, but leaps away with the ambush to safety for now, as iRaffer and Dardez were just starting to loom in support of Cherryo there in the jungle.
iRaffer being on the Achilles, though, is kind of problematic for Eonic with the Circuit for falling behind, just because Achilles, whenever he's able to have the experience lead, he's already a little bit of a bully. Yeah. Traditionally, and so now 2 levels above Eonic, I think it'll be a lot more complicated for Eonic to necessarily ambush in and look to be aggressive as initiation.
Ducky pressure under his tower still. Cherryo will swing around to the right-hand side and get that Totem of Coup earlier on. 5 totems of coup so far for Renegade, so a little bit of priority on the right-hand side. Bit weird to try and discuss that, I guess, because of the fact it's a Nox matchup, so you expect him to get pressure in this lane. But here comes Weaken. Nika, pinned in trouble now, has his ultimate available, may need it soon. Ducky off the mark with his ultimate, though, and that could turn things around. Nika getting aggressive, Gladiator Shield healing him back up, but the silence causes so many problems. Nika may fall, but Cherryo might be able to turn this around.
Weaken, though, trying to stay alive.
The monkey toss.
Cherryo just isn't able to find the monkey toss, and a nice Shadowlock Siphon Darkness combo, but Eonic made the rotation in, found the Cobra's Kiss onto Cherryo, will force the Purification beats, but the silence has been applied. iRaffer, though, with the juke shoes, not going to get caught inside that Nox root. Yeah,
more importantly, iRaffer with the stun on Eonic there as he came in range, trying to turn that around onto Cherryo. But Cherryo may still be in trouble. Eonic still on the chase, has his ultimate available. I think Cherryo sniffed it out towards the tail end. Going back to the gank, though, I actually think Cherryo messed that up because he's on low ping. Because of the amount of time that the monkey threw, he'd already bounced to a new target.
Advance, waiting for the delay.
Yeah, so he's still adjusting to like being on lower ping. That's what it felt like to me. That's not a play that you'd see happen on a day-to-day basis, is it?
No, it really isn't, and that might actually be a really good explanation for it, because Cherryo did just arrive. Yeah. So you have to factor in that Renegades have had a fairly limited amount of time with Cherryo plugged into this roster now. And I think it is going to take him some ramp-up time to make that adjustment. I mean, if you saw Cherryo's setup, you would completely understand where we're coming from.
Well, it's been a long time coming in this Renegades matchup, and we saw Funballer on the left-hand side this game. Spoke to him during the off-season, in the most part, back in Manchester, just talking about, well, what his hopes and dreams are for this year, and if anything, just be better than last year for him. Himself, Ducky, another member of that team as well that struggled, actually finds himself onto that Trifecta roster here. A couple of members of SK with a lot of points to prove this year from the previous.
And for good reason. I can completely understand where Funballer is coming from a player's perspective. It just doesn't feel good to lose as often as Funballer did with that SK roster.
I think it's also because the community looks at him like they're terrible players. It's just
and they're really not.
The league was just really tough in the grand scheme of things, and I think we may see that again this year. With all the games being played live here in Atlanta, there's going to be teams that slip towards the bottom. At the moment, that's where Trifecta are here. And we'll see how they continue marching on. At the moment, they're up against this Renegades team. Renegades looking to either get a win in the win column or a loss in the loss column, just something in the column to start this off.
They're just glad to be playing.
Yeah, pretty much. It's taken a long time coming, let's put it that way.
And I think that's also part of the reason why Trifecta can afford to do a more unconventional composition.
I agree.
Because Renegades have been watching. They've just been having to watch the entire time. So they've never really necessarily had a chance to practice what they see. And then for Trifecta to just completely 180 into this super jankiness type composition is Cherryo. A little too late on that Fear No Evil, and Weekend is letting him know.
Yeah, and I love that Weekend's letting him know too, because that just gets under your skin, you know? When you miss an ultimate like that, get a little bit frustrated, cause some problems. Eonic and Lasbra grouped up on the left, clearing out some wards and the left-hand Harpies. For a second, I thought there might be a gank attempt on. Take into account, Trifecta do have a power play for a little while now. Cherryo's ult on cooldown for a moment or two means that we won't see too much pressure out of the jungler unless it's forced by Trifecta.
This vision, though, from Renegades has been so strong throughout this entire match, and that's been the primary reason I think Trifecta haven't really been able to just run loose with Eonic, because every single time Eonic has tried to do something insanely aggressive, well, Renegades have the vision to respond, just like this Gold Fury pool. Wowy still on top of the objective, but iRaffer's letting him take his chunks hits out of the HP.
Taco, this is Trifecta's play because Fear No Evil's down. They're going to get the root off onto iRaffer. Full pressure on him, but he'll skirt the borders. Dardez, meanwhile, got the Kraken out, but it didn't really do too much damage. It's Ducky who's lowest. But now Nika turns up too. Both teams start to fall away. That was Trifecta's window there. I get the Gold Fury pull because of the fact that Fear No Evil's down anyway. They can try and force a fight. Just didn't come up as well as they were hoping.
Think that Funballer and Dardez were trying to bait Trifecta back into that Gold Fury, but Trifecta just knew there's not a chance that it's just going to be a Poseidon and a Soul while the rest of your team is in mid. So Renegades successfully get Trifecta off the objective, but more importantly, they don't lose anybody in the process.
I knew for a fact it wasn't really a proper Gold Fury because they were doing it while Renegades had the Oracles, so full vision was available to Renegades there. I think they sniffed out the danger too. Build-wise, you see them coming along quite nicely. Funballer just been back and picked up 2 rings in a row, pretty much, as he works from one into the other. But iRaffer, more importantly, that wing blade we saw him get early on, he's still got boots, the basic boots, boots 1, which I'm quite surprised that you've not invested more for the mobility there.
Well, I love that he went straight from Wingblade into the Gauntlet of Thieves. I think that rushing those early procs is a little bit more important, especially when the Wingblade proc initially is going to get you out of danger from any sort of slows that Trifecta might have thrown iRaffer's way. But Trifecta, now with that Oracle Vision having worn off, they're looking to bring Renegades right back into this Gold Fury pit. Wowy one more time, getting it down about 60% here, but another fresh reset. And a good Sacred Monkey Toss from Cherryo, gonna bounce just a bit, giving some okay damage.
Got to be a little bit careful here, though. Renegades do have that teleport available on the right-hand side for Nika to come to this fight if required. All ultimates available. Outside a relic situation of iRaffer's shell being down here, it's a relatively even situation. Trifecta get the Oracles, though, walk away. They don't get the fight they were after.
I think that Dardez has also been really on top of these Krakens this game, and they provided a lot of zoning control for Renegades in instances where I think Trifecta would have normally just found a free pick or two. I think that Dardez's Kraken, even around that last Gold Fury pit, was perfect. Even though it really only applied damage to Ducky, who's probably the worst target priority, it was just the fact that it cut off Trifecta from continuing the chase into iRaffer, into Cherryo, when they started getting kind of poked out from the Nox Silence combo.
Biggest concern for Dardez in mid is how he ends up playing his mages in the mid lane, because when you've been support for so long and you've had the ability to support teams so much, you're going to continue to do so even in the mage role, and that may come at the cost of damage sometimes, which your team may need. So Dardez using Krakens for, you know, helping the team is great, but I do hope that he can find some windows to just look for the raw damage sometimes and not worry about the supportive aspects.
I just have a feeling that he's going to be looking to be mostly utility-based with this Poseidon. I think that the rush for the cooldown boots for the mages is usually an indicator, for me at least, that someone is looking to be more proactive in terms of setup than actual burst damage. But I like that he still went for the Spear of Magus rush as well. I think that that's going to be really important as far as just getting some form of magical return damage against Trifecta, because they do have this Nox and Lasbra on that Discordia, 2 really controlling mages at times, especially when they're able to kind of sync up their kits, and plus Weekend with that Nox, or excuse me, Nemesis ultimate is also, it's just not fun to deal with.
And looking at Ducky's build, if you're going to be picking Nox in your games against Arthur, this is the sort of build you're looking at. Clearly, Breastplate of Valor, Shoes of Focus, Spirit of Magus, interestingly enough, which isn't something you generally see on a Nox.
It's a hybrid base build, and I think that it definitely still works because Nox does have a ton of damage on her ultimate. I think that the ult is oftentimes underutilized when it comes to just initial spam damage.
And her root does do a dot, so I guess it's an easy way to stack it to get some extra damage for Lasbra. Trifecta, pull the Gold Fury again, but quickly reset after the Monkey Toss comes through. Rafa stepped forward and slapped. I think it was Lasbra in the face there. Cherryo was trying to wrap around the back to the left-hand side, but Weaken's covering the option there. Jungler's matching pace. Trifecta haven't given up this Gold Fury yet, but with Dardez now pressuring mid again, it's going to force somebody there to defend eventually.
Little cheeky from Wowy, just full healing off of that Gold Fury, constant resetting. You have to actually pull it in order to get some heal now as a hunter, so I can't just stand there free healing off the Gold Fury any longer.
You sound very sad about that situation.
Well, it used to be a thing. It was nice when it existed, but it was definitely busted.
Wow, that's not normally I hear out of you. Nika versus Ducky again going on. It's Eonic, though, that popped the ultimate, funny enough, against Nika, but it wasn't enough to turn into a kill. Kraken out, hits onto Ducky, but Ducky's still alive. Comes into play as the root combo hits Rafa. Rafa getting low as well. He uses the ultimate to cause a bit of aggression, too. Eonic, though, taking a lot of damage from Funballer's ultimate. The Supernova came up huge from Renegades, as Rafa will also take another kill and start the Gold Fury.
Renegades just swarmed around Trifecta, and Dardez's control with these whirlpools has been more than enough hard crowd control. Cherryo gonna get hit by the unruly magic, and Ducky will bring down iRaffer eventually, but trading out the support for a Gold Fury and a couple of kills from Trifecta, Renegades are just laughing their way home to the bank.
Yeah, it works out very well for Mr. 3,000 gold lead for Renegades, 4,000 experience too. As you said, it was 2 kills to 1 and a Gold Fury for Renegades, but also look at the relics. Relics definitely do take into account how many we use there, so Renegades use a couple too, as do Trifecta. Aegis and Aegis still available though for Lasbra and Wowy weren't used in those fights.
Lasbra and Wowy, I think, really want to save that Aegis for Krakens, and the unexpected burst damage from Funballer's Supernova right into the Calamity. It was like right in the middle of the chaos. And I think it was because of Dardez's Whirlpool, Trifecta had a tough time seeing that a Supernova was following up.
Pyromancer goes down there for Renegades too, and yeah, you're right, the Supernova, I think it was just so much carnage of abilities and pretty colors everywhere, but some of those colors were pretty dangerous to you. Funballer came up big with the kill there overall. They just started to open the window for Renegades. I do love the Pyromancer they just took too, Taco. Still had a bit of a window of opportunity. Trifecta weren't fully about themselves after the last fight and immediately go over there, make sure Trifecta can't try and find an answer to the Gold Fury.
And I think that was really the first insight moment we got to Trifecta's limitations as far as their assassin-based composition is concerned, because while Eonic's on the Circuit, and you can make Circuit fairly tanky, especially when you go Reinforced Greaves, Thieves, and a Spirit Row, but it still has its limits in comparison to something that's just traditionally more of a tank force to be reckoned with, like iRaffer's Achilles.
And that's why my concern for Trifecta's composition really is that it's very much single target focused. Realistically, it's only Lasbra that's going to do any sort of real team AoE damage to cause problems. And if they invest everything in one target, they don't get a kill, it's not going to work out. Tier 1 in the mid goes down, but Cherryo jumps over the wall to try and defend the Tier 2 on the left-hand side. Wowy commits the ultimate, which trades the Fear No Evil, but with Nika's rotation, Wowy could be in a hell of a lot of trouble. Everybody in the map starting to turn attention to the left-hand side. Wowy realizes he can't get away from this King Arthur, so he's going to have to stand and fight. And in doing so, it did at least buy a bit of time for Weaken to escape danger too.
Not a chance that both of them are going to be able to survive. Weaken just cutting their losses short. I think that he made the right decision as a jungler to not put his team into a position of a 3v5, because in a 4v5, Trifecta can still reasonably contest Renegades at a Fire Giant, if that's where Renegades chooses to go. Nika, however, has other plans in mind. He's going to try to just solo Weaken underneath his own T1 tower, and Weaken still trying to juke around.
And he does a good job of it, but it does cost him beads and blink. Ducky, meanwhile, does absorb a Kraken and get away with it too, but Rafa on the rotation round. Ducky no dash available, so Ducky under a lot of pressure. Whirlpool comes into play, but Silence cancels that out. Lasbra just trying to push Rafa back where possible. But all the while, it's Renegades on the march. They seem to be the ones in control now and choosing where the engagements happen. And the next engagement could be at this Fire Giant.
And it is melting, by the way. Dardez and Funballer have already brought down this Fire Giant to 50% HP. iRaffer to play zone duty means that Ducky, his teleport is just going to be too little too late. Renegades get the Fire Giant for free.
And now Eonic still on the chase around the jungle, but he's got to be careful because the rotation from all angles gets him pincered from the Renegades. Will jump away with the ambush. But 7,000 gold now for the Renegades. A Fire Giant around their waist. And pretty much it's only tier 2 towers left standing here for Trifecta to defend.
I just think that the Renegades, the way that they played the early game is the main reason why Trifecta are struggling so much right now. Because this is a comp where Trifecta had to be aggressive. They had to be proactive looking for early ganks. And Eonic tried to do that and was punished for it on 2 different occasions. And not only that, but again, this vision across the map for Renegades has been so strong that outside of Eonic having to put himself into awkward positions just to be aggressive for Trifecta, I don't think that Renegades have really been all that threatened.
Oh, Weekend didn't realize he was still getting chased through the jungle there, but luckily his dash was available. Remember, moments ago we saw him use his blink and bead, so he was going to be in a lot of trouble if he gets pincered there in the jungle. Just trying to get as much farm as possible. The level 18 Weekend at the moment. 2 levels behind Cherryo, who's at level 20. How Renegades seem to you for game 1?
I don't think that we've really gotten to see as much from Renegades. This is mostly just Renegades just being smart.
It feels like they're answering a question. That's what it feels like to me. Like Trifecta went, hey, how good are you in the early game right now? Can you deal with this insanity?
Yeah, Renegades are like, we can hold our own.
This
is not a problem.
Don't be silly. This is game 1. You had your fun. You thought you'd exploit us. It didn't happen. Let's play SMITE game 2. That's kind of what it's feeling like to me.
I think this might have been a little bit too far outside the norm for Trifecta, and it required a level of execution that Trifecta couldn't meet for, I think, 2 main reasons. The ward vision, like we've already mentioned, and just the fact that they didn't really coordinate their members to be in a position to find the necessary picks for a snowball advantage.
I'm not completely upset with the comp. It's just very high execution, and they just need a little bit. They just need a little bit of extra safety in this that they've not got. However, Ducky, I will say, this Nox has worked out for me. It's survived the laning phase, and it's caused problems for the Renegades roster. And he steals a Gold Fury, or a Fury, at least.
I really like Ducky on the Nox as a response for the King Art there. I just think that Nemesis might have taken a little bit too long to get online to continuously look to punish Nika.
I think they just need more regular CC. You know, I feel like a Guardian in this mix may have helped them somewhere. Guardian in the jungle even. I'm not even trying to force Eonic onto one. I just think a Guardian in this matchup would really help them. Athena, Bracken even in a weird way. I know he's not meta right now, but someone with CC that's going to be able to lock some of the Renegades people in place and allow these lock-on damage dealers to do a ton.
No, I could definitely agree with you on that one. I think that there is a lot of hard CC for Trifecta, but it's mostly centralized around Ducky.
Yeah.
So if Ducky isn't in position or close enough to the target focus that Trifecta wants against Renegades, and it kind of sucks too for Ducky because the only people that are really going to be that far out forward is an Achilles or a King Arthur. So it's like, pick your poison, but I don't know if that's really the situation you want to be investing all of your cooldowns on, unless Weekend gets off a really strong Nemesis ult.
Well, it looks like they're trying to make a play on this left-hand side Trifecta. Funballer was pushed up, and they're trying to set up a trap around the purple buff, but I think Dardez smelt that and gave the information up to Funballer, who's still under pressure. Funballer uses ultimate nicely there, in fairness, after the disapparate. Now Cherryo with the rotation, Fear No Evil out, gets the beads out of Weekend. Weekend double dashes away. Now that Renegades have 4 main groups on this left-hand side, it's Trifecta that have to turn tail for now. Remember, Renegades still have the Fire Giant for a few more seconds.
Trifecta, I think, are just trying to waste Renegades' time, though, with all of this movement. And, well, now Renegades trying to give some chase to Trifecta here. iRaffer going to be the first one to possibly cut off Lasbra, and Lasbra could be in some trouble here because Dardez and Funballer are close behind.
Oh, but a great ult from Lasbra to avoid the damage out of Nika and the CC chain. Cherryo was wrapping around the jungle too, but that's a good disengage from Trifecta overall. They don't lose a tier 2, and I was going to bring up before all that action on the left-hand side that Renegades didn't really get too much out of that Fire Giant they got. They
mostly
got
just got map pressure.
Yeah.
I think that Trifecta were able to spread the map pretty efficiently. It was just the split push. Sometimes split push really can be the solution for whenever you're trying to recover and just look for a hard reset of the game. I think that Trifecta wasting as much time as they did from Renegades could be a little bit of a Debbie Downer for the Renegades, but with the way that some of these team fights have gone, with all like in a true raw 5v5, I think Renegades have definitely gotten the better end of Trifecta in the terms of the execution.
Well, the next Fire Giant is spawning right about now. It's going to be an enhanced version 2. Ducky over on this right-hand side, just trying to protect the blue more than anything else and keep vision on that Fire Giant to see if Renegades are coming over here as well. Trifecta on the defense, though. The siege defense isn't too bad from them. They've got a lot of control at wave clear and decent poke under the Phoenixes, right?
I'd almost prefer to see them just try to play solely off of Phoenix defense,
Really?
as opposed to looking to try and contest inside of the jungle. I feel like the jungle fight is still a little bit too problematic for Trifecta because it's so single target burst from their comp that I don't think they're going to have enough time to really whittle away at someone from Renegades before getting punished.
iRaffer happy to frontline for now, and Renegades happy to just try and look for a pick in the jungle. Eonic may have been sniffed out here, and with Cherryo pressure mid, Eonic's going to watch his positioning. But Renegades are also bringing down the minions the right-hand side too. Funballer's pushed those in nicely. If that soul gets into tower range, it won't take too long for that tier 2 to fall.
Renegades need this T2 to go down, though, before they truly feel comfortable looking at that Enhanced Fire Giant. Enhanced Fire Giant is just so tanky. iRaffer could be in a lot of trouble here, though. Wowie's auto is starting to deal some serious damage now that he's got that chin size online.
But our ultimate out of Lasbra did not connect with anyone, unfortunately. The ricochet bounces didn't work out nice. As Weaken versus Cherryo in the mid lane goes Cherryo's way, forcing Weaken back and giving him a bit of free solo time on that tier 2 in the mid lane.
Keep in mind, though, Weaken was able to survive through Cherryo's Fear No Evil, and that, I think, is a big win within itself. But iRaffer could be in some trouble. You're going to get locked into place, and Ducky will find the first pick onto iRaffer's Achilles.
That was a really good pick overall. And that's the first time we've seen the composition really shine from Trifecta for a minute. Eonic gets the ultimate, and then because they're stood still, he's able to have the team CC chain them straight after the fact and bring him down. With iRaffer being dead, Renegades have to turn around for now. A lot of minions on the left-hand side, however, and the middle area for Trifecta to clear out before they can even look towards the Enhanced Fire Giant.
That pick does come at a price, though. I think that Trifecta actually wound up getting more poked out than the Renegades, but the tower acting as that active 6-man for Trifecta is the primary reason why Renegades are forced to disengage there. But that also kind of just further feeds into my thought process of I think
defense.
Trifecta should just play base defense.
Yeah, and it shows what they can do on the base defenses here. If Eonic can get himself into that situation, even if it's iRaffer, I mean, it's not going to take too long to bring him down, but too much investment on a tank can come back to haunt you. And you saw Renegades throw out the Kraken with Dardez there, just didn't really find the right target. It was kind of everywhere at the same time. Sometimes you get in that zone, though, as a mage in the mid lane. You've got a big old ultimate, you're trying to hit as many people as possible, and then you end up missing everyone because you go for the most. Goal Fury in response from Trifecta, though. It will close the goal gap a little bit, as Renegades are on the Pyromancer.
And I actually like that from Trifecta. They could have definitely looked to try and challenge for that Pyromancer instead. And I think Renegades might have even let them have it, but Trifecta recognizing that they'd rather just have the immediate goal to try and finish off some of their item builds. I think Renegades are definitely in a better spot as far as their itemization is concerned, so Trifecta just looking to catch up.
Only 2 members of Trifecta were up there, and it was Lasbra and Eonic, and Lasbra took a lot of damage there already, down below half health, as the whole of Renegades were grouped up as 5. Full minion wave now coming in, and with Lasbra with no beads, he's going to have to sit even further back. Weaken's trying to flank through the jungle where possible, as the Sol, played by Funballer, is just going to keep throwing out the poke where possible. But Trifecta's still happy to play this angle, it seems.
Lasbra?
And so are Renegades.
I just want to see Lasbra back. He needs to go get some health. Renegades with their reset, and that's going to give Lasbra the chance he needs to head on home so he can fully regen. Cutting it close, though, for Trifecta for sure. And the same for Renegades. It's obvious that they feel content looking to be aggressive if there's only 2 giving face, but how long can they really hold on to that? I think it's Wowy that Renegades really have to keep an eye out for. He feels like the primary damage dealer right now for Trifecta.
We'll see what he can do as this one continues. Ward coverage around the Enhanced Fire Giants Trifectas for now. Obviously, this is Renegade's first game of the season too, so it's a first look for all the teams in the league to see how this team is going to shape up. At the moment, Trifecta have, well, held their own, but they're still at a deficit. Nika gets rid of beads away there, so that relic's not available. Cherryo now wrapping back in, has the Fear No Evil up, but with the Monkey Tusk not hitting Eonic there, he'll have to back away. Trifecta relieve pressure, Renegades walk in, start clearing out some wards.
But neither of these teams feels confident in pulling that Enhanced Fire Giant right away. That Fire Giant is just so tanky once it hits the enhanced phase that I don't blame either side, because they didn't pick super heavy frontline compositions, and most of these teams, or both of these teams, really just looking to try and settle the team fight before the objective, I think.
I really feel Renegades comp is pretty standard. I just feel like Trifecta's is so out there to an extent that Renegades are like, well, we look a little bit out there too now, you know, because we've got a Achilles support, which is
it just feels so all or nothing
Yeah.
from Trifecta that Renegades are almost having to play with that same sort of mindset.
Combo out from Ducky there. Did a bit of damage towards Raffer with the support of Lasbra too. But it's all about keeping an eye on Eonic. He's the engage for this team. He's the only real one that can go in and set something up outside of Lasbra. Blinking from Cherryo though, going to turn that around. No beads available for Lasbra, remember? No life available for Lasbra. And Cherryo showing off how good he can be. Cracking from Dardez did actually hit Wowy enough to force him out of the fight completely, as Ducky dancing around in the fight where possible. Dardez getting low. Monkey toss will help out Dardez in the back line, but he only got the ultimate off in time to secure the kill. The poison didn't really spread, however, and meanwhile Funballer will take down Eonic, and with the rest of the Trifecta turning tail, the tier 2 tower is exposed and taken by the Renegades.
A 1 for 2 is better than nothing, and Renegades, with the removal of that T2 tower, Trifecta also won't have that undecided, or I shouldn't say undecided, but the 6-man.
Yeah.
It's what's been, I think, really saving Trifecta in a lot of these kind of awkward situations, because Renegades clearly don't want to full-on dive a T2 tower, but they also feel confident enough to at least push somewhat into that T2 tower with Raffer or Nika. But now that it's gone entirely, Trifecta, if they want to challenge the enhanced Fire Giant, they've got to make sure they don't lose somebody in the process like they lost Lasbra so quickly.
There'll be a lot of confidence building on both these teams going on here, though, because Renegades, you know, first game of the season, they're taking on Trifecta and doing okay in it. They've got control of this game with an 11,000 gold lead. The Trifecta themselves, they're showing that they can stand against the Renegades at the moment. With an unconventional comp too, they've held them to 35 minutes in this game, and they're not out of it just yet. Sure, 11k gold lead something, but we know SMITE Taco. The longer the game goes on, a couple of kills, and you can run it down mid.
You can end the game with just 2 picks nowadays, depending on when you find those 2 picks. And this game is rapidly approaching those levels. This Weekend's going to lose his Purification beads, and now Cherryo drops the Fear No Evil. That's going to be a clean pick for the Renegades. And with only Cherryo's ult being down, I don't think that Trifecta are going to want to challenge this enhanced Fire Giant pool. They might still look to see if they can find any sort of return picks.
Such a big pick for Renegades in the grand scheme of things. Weekend's off on his own there, and I don't know where the call's wrong there. It's either Weekend's too far away from his team, or his team's not doing anything either, because they were grouped as a 4-man looking to try and group up around this Fire Giant. Raffer frontlining against Ducky. Eonic trying to slip around the back towards Nika and will force him off the Fire Giant, but Raffer took a lot of damage for that. Trifecta may have just done enough for now to stop the Fire Giant, but maybe not the Phoenix in mid lane, Taco.
No, Cherryo's tired of waiting around. He's just trying to make a play all on his own, but Eonic's not clearing the wave. He's mostly just trying to slow Cherryo down, but Cherryo's just staying focused entirely on the Phoenix.
Might have been more worthwhile for Eonic to look for the minions over the kill. He should get the kill towards the tail end here against Cherryo, and he will do so. Lasbra was just there for the pickup too, but all the while Renegades on the Fire Giant, and they will get it. Ducky and Wowy were here to try and slow it down. They got some good damage off onto the members of Renegades, but not enough for a kill. Cherryo falls, gets a Phoenix in mid. Renegades also get the enhanced Fire Giant, and there's only 2 Phoenixes remaining now.
I feel like Renegades are just one-upping Trifecta.
Yeah.
It's like Trifecta will find a pick, but Renegades found 2 picks, plus an objective, plus a Phoenix.
Trifecta just trying to make things happen and trying to make it happen onto Funballer, but Funballer gets a lot of peel. He did use the beads and disapparate too, but also got the shell out of Raffer, and that's good enough for Funballer to live. More importantly now, Trifecta turn their attention to the Primal Fury. Raffer and Nika and Dardez on the way.
If Trifecta get this Primal Fury, it could be big for helping slow down that mid-fire wave push, but you gotta be careful. Raffer right in the center of everybody, though. That's gonna be an easy pick for Trifecta, and now Renegades are forced to back off. Cherryo and Raffer already losing that enhanced Fire Giant buff. It could impact Renegades on these next couple of Phoenix pushes.
I think so. There'll be a little bit of a window now with Raffer being dead, where Renegades will just wait around for their support to come back into the fray. The bigger thing, though, Taka, is the fact that the base was broken for me. Like, now that it's a weakened Phoenix in mid, sure, if they can't siege now, that's fine. But there's always going to be one weakened Phoenix, which means that Cherryo can go off and split push a little bit from the mid lane, while the rest of the team pressure another lane. And so Trifecta's defense that we were talking is very, very good. Won't be as good if they're going to have to split up.
But it won't be as good for Renegades either if they're constantly losing 1 or 2 members before they really get an opportunity to try and full-on base siege. Yeah, it's awesome having the initial base breach because it does give Renegades the opening and put some pressure onto Trifecta that they can't afford to lose members in the jungle any longer. But it still isn't a good take for Renegades either that iRaffer and Cherryo... Or iRaffer couldn't get picked right after Cherryo, basically.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I think iRaffer should have probably hung further back. I think he was just too far forward there over a Fury that, in the grand scheme of things, is probably one of the better Furies at the stage of the game, the Primal. But it wasn't that desperate to have to die for.
Well, I just think Renegades have to be grouped up to negate Trifecta's composition. Of course, not group up for the Siphon Darkness, obviously, from Ducky, but I don't think that Trifecta finds that pick onto iRaffer if everyone from Renegades is in that area. But at the same time, I also don't think Trifecta tries to pull the Primal Fury without first forcing Funballer's actives.
Trifecta then onto the defense again as Renegades start to group up on the left-hand side. Still got Fire Giant on a few members for a little bit of time here, roughly about a minute and a half, I'd say. So we'll see what they can do on this left-hand side. The middle Phoenix still down. And the one thing from Trifecta you're looking at is Blink available for Eonic, because that's their only real engage they have outside of a combination connecting from Ducky.
I think Trifecta are going to prioritize kills over saving the Phoenixes. Even if this left side Phoenix dies, it won't matter if Trifecta can find 3 to 4 picks, possibly even a deicide.
Wicked's clearing minions in the mid lane now as the first wave spawns for Trifecta on the left. Here come the minions into the Phoenix range. Nika and iRaffer will frontline for this. Bit of respect that wave, however, from Renegades. No full-on engage straight away. They just let the minion wave get cleared by Ducky and Lasbra.
Weekend versus Cherryo in the mid lane, though, might favor this Humbats because he's got the Fear No Evil to just fully commit to that mid Phoenix instead of looking for a kill onto Weekend. But Renegade's going to utilize this last couple of fire waves, I think, to try and re-siege mid.
Blinking from Eonic, looks at the backline for damage as much as he can do, but he eats a Kraken for the most part. The Thorns came into play. Not really useful overall at the end of the day. Funballer got very low in the engagement now, however, and has to disapparate away. Trifecta successfully defend their middle Phoenix. It has respawned. There's still one more fire wave coming through. I don't think Renegades can use it, though.
I think Eonic wishes he had a shell right about now, but he lived with about 10 HP.
Yep.
But he did survive long enough for Trifecta to get their return damage out, and that's a successful mid-Phoenix defense. Into a enhanced Fire Giant composition, Renegades essentially get nothing for securing the enhanced Fire Giant.
That's true. But the next Fire Giant spawning, and then we go back to it again, maybe. This time, the middle Phoenix weakened. If Cherryo goes back there, it'll take him even less time to kill it.
I almost think that this is a worse situation, though, for Renegades than when Trifecta was initially on the back foot, because Trifecta, the later on you go against a Nemesis composition, one with Nox as well, it just gets scary because there's so much spam of their kits, and it's just so annoying dealing with the silences and the constant slows, and your tanks really aren't as tanky as they used to be when they're warrior-based.
Yeah, especially when there's a Nemesis too, like you were saying. And of course, Sir Cat will do the same sort of thing with the ultimate, just ignoring protections completely. iRaffer walks in, stuns Ducky. Fear No Evil out from Cherryo on the backside that hits Lasbra. I think Lasbra got away from that all beads, and it cost Cherryo his beads in response. As soon as that ultimate down from Cherryo, Renegades fall back again. Let's have a look at the relic situation. Lasbra didn't even have his beads there, actually, funny enough, and Wowies have been used recently. So both teams not feeling great around the dance of the Fire Giant now with how the relic situation is.
That Fear No Evil was just a little bit too deep for Cherryo in my eyes, Hindu. I think that it wasn't likely that anybody from Renegades is going to be able to provide follow-up damage.
Trifecta want to get aggressive. It's Eonic going on towards Dardez. Gets the ultimate off too, pushes him back towards Ducky, who got an ultimate off in response, but a big old shell came into play there that prevented a lot of the damage that Dardez took. Wowy got chipped to half health, will escape the damage out from the Stellar Burst of Funballer for now. And Trifecta, it's kind of a to and fro matchup this. Renegades get aggressive, then Trifecta get aggressive. Renegades get aggressive, then Trifecta get aggressive, and now it's on Renegades again. Nika still chasing onto Lasbra. Lasbra got a bit of support out of Wowy and Ducky, but he chose the wrong option, I feel, here overall, Taco. Or he just got isolated from the team. Lasbra picked up. Renegades find a win.
Lasbra just ran away from his team there. I'm not really sure why he opted for that jungle path, and probably because of panic, just trying to straight line so he could create as much distance as possible, but he backpedaled for so long as well on that retreat. That was the main reason why Nika was able to catch up to him. It's because he essentially choke pointed himself.
Especially with the slowdown, I think you were right more than anything with the turnaround to throw damage out and backpedal. It's not as quick as moving forward. I think there's one thing that a lot of people don't take into account. I mean, the mid-tier players start to get it, but like if you're in the gold level and stuff, some people don't realize that just pressing W is quicker than pressing S.
Yep. And Lasbra, well, he'll certainly have to keep that one in mind. On the bright side, though, his beads are back up off cooldown, so he'll at least have that for Cherryo should he have to deal with another Fear No Evil. But Renegades understand they're in the 4v5 power play currently, and Ducky's really the only Trifecta member local to the Enhanced Fire Giant pit to try and play defense.
It's also the hardest one for him to kill. Look at Ducky just walking on in there, forcing a Fire Giant reset. Sets up iRaffer to take a bit of poke damage too. Monkey Toss from Cherryo did not hit Ducky there, and that causes a problem. Cherryo actually uses that Magi's Cloak with the silence after the fact. The collapse is on Eonic. Eonic is a tanky target, even though he's a circuit. He's lived as long as he can, get some reinforcements, but finally goes down to Funballer. On the backside of this, though, Weekend got in and took apart the Poseidon, and we can now take it on Nika and Cherryo. Meanwhile, Ducky's still trading with iRaffer with Wowy in support, and Funballer pushed out, but Weekend took too much time on his own, didn't get any help until it was too late. But now the collapse from Trifecta's here, and Cherryo will fall.
Cherryo hoping for another Bloodforge proc, but he's just not going to be able to find it, and just like that, it's a complete reset of the match. Neither side really willing to budge, but the frustration factor, I think, still heavier on Renegade's side because they're the ones who really want to pull this Enhanced Fire Giant, and they know for a fact that Trifecta can't pull this Enhanced Fire Giant. It's going to be up to Renegades every single time to see if they can come out on top from the fight that's sure to follow.
I think that's where we're at in this game now, Taco. We mentioned it about, well, 27 minutes, I'd say, regarding the longer the game goes, the more likely it is one wipe will end you the game. Look at the respawn times off that last couple of kills we saw. They're at a minute respawn time already. If you see 3 or 4 members of a team go down now, the full itemization build, the amount of gold, it's going to be a push down mid situation if a fight like that happens a couple more times.
We are getting awfully close to those 80-second plus respawn timers, and when the game hits that stage, even one pick could be the end of it because it just causes the dominoes effect of one pick and then you just swarm and continue finding them.
I'm feeling a record-breaking game here.
You think so?
I think this could be one of the longest ones. I think we might be on track for it.
It has a chance.
It does.
It does have a chance.
Production just said to me, why would you say that? I'm like, because it's me casting it, it'll probably fall that way.
No, but it's Caster's Curse, so now it has to work the opposite. Trifecta or Renegades.
When you talk about the Caster's Curse, it doesn't work anymore. Why would you do that? I was trying to get this game to end, so we don't... I think we're going to be here for 90 minutes.
I think the last thing Trifecta want to do is end the game.
I'm going for 79 minutes here now.
But keep in mind, though, this is the Renegades' first game, their first set. And they're already 45-plus minutes deep.
And I love the fact that Trifecta, even though they fell behind here, is staying in this one because that tests Renegade's endurance too. These best-of-5 things, we've not seen as many of them throughout the years of SMITE. Generally, they've always been at World Championships or big international tournaments. Now it's week on week on week. It's best-of-5, so you have to get the stamina to at least play 4 most of the time. Well, then you take into account that some of those games may go an hour, maybe even an hour and a half. Then you've got to get the stamina levels going. And Dardez doesn't look too sleepy just yet, but just keep an eye on some of the Renegades cameras to see if they start to feel the burn here.
These are the games that can make you anxious, though, from a player's perspective. Nika getting chunked out pretty heavily by Weekend and Eonic. Going to eat that last breath, no problem. Supernova to follow, though, from Funballer, and it's going to be Weekend who actually trades out his life.
They nearly picked off Nika there, but in fairness, Nika's use of his ultimate to get away from Eonic was important, but Lasbra got isolated by Cherryo. The bounce off the wall from the apple kept him alive a little bit longer, but Funballer is now on a rampage and picks up the tail end. The caster's curse is coming up good for me right now as Renegades looking to pile down mid for this weakened Phoenix. Eonic's still alive for now, but he needs to fall back to defend. Make sure Renegades can't look to end the game.
Funballer and Dardez, I
Got no
think,
minions.
could be enough, but you're right, without the minions, it's going to be a much taller task bringing down this mid-Phoenix. Renegades, though, could possibly try to get more than just this mid-Phoenix. Cherryo did push up a wave on the right-hand side, and Dardez already making his way over to try and siege it.
Renegades starting to group up on the right now then with the minions. As you said, this Phoenix won't take long. Ducky going to ult early on. Didn't really connect with anyone as iRaffer stunned him after the fact. Wowy tried to stay in the fray, but Nika's going to make sure that he runs all the way back to the fountain. Ducky has to as well. The second Phoenix falls, and the caster curse came up well. Taka, well done. We're out of this game and on to game 2. Renegades will take game 1 in 48 minutes.
A fairly quick collapse as well, and it didn't even come because of the enhanced fire giant. It was just a heads-up opportunity there and a punish, more importantly, against Eonic and Weekend.
Yeah, I felt like Eonic and Weekend both went for a play on Nika in the mid lane, looked for a cheeky pick real quick, but Nika's ultimate bought him enough time for the Renegades to turn around, pick up the kills, pick up the game 1. Trifecta then, back to the drawing board again. What do you want to see different from Trifecta for game 2?
I really just want to see Trifecta ban King Arthur for once, man. I don't get me wrong. I don't think Ducky was the problem on this Nox. I really don't think that was the issue.
How weird is it for us to say that when it was a Nox solo that we're like, hey, that's okay?
I just feel like King Arthur being able to buy himself so much time because he's just immune to damage, he's got somebody up in the air, it gives plenty of response time for Renegades to then rotate over, and the fact that Weekend and Eonic get punished there instead of finding a clean pick, I think if it had been any other solo laner, that solo laner probably dies.
Very true indeed. That's the end of game 1 then. Let's go to the desk to break it down as these guys get themselves ready for game 2.
1 for 1 for Renegades so far. They win their first matchup of Season 6, but it was not easy. Totally Trifecta's composition, the thing that we were worried about, the death ball from Renegades, I think came to fruition. Trifecta had a really tough time cleanly winning team fights.
It was an interesting composition that works on paper, but very difficult to execute throughout the game. Eonic had some great opportunities on the circuit, but the issue was running into the Poseidon. Even though Dardez's game was a little bit slow, I think, especially towards the end, but still having to worry about the cripple for not only himself, but also for the Nemesis on Weekend. I like their composition, they just couldn't make it work because of all the individual picks. Wowy gets picked off in the left side around 22 minutes. That allows Renegades to get the Fire Giant. Weekend getting picked off at 36 minutes. Middle Phoenix falls as a result. It was all these little plays that allowed Renegades to get the bigger objective.
Lasbra got picked a couple times by backpedaling a whole lot. I mean, this was just a rough individual performance, I think, at times from Trifecta. And that being said, with a lot of rough individual plays, they still hold on for a really long time. Renegades have some tough time closing. Was that more Trifecta's defense or Renegades' offense?
I think it was more of the defense. Playing against a Nox, whether that's mid or solo lane, very difficult to siege against. Ducky on the Nox, having to play against Nika's Arthur was not an easy task, but he, played very well on the Nox.
Yeah, the Nox solo worked for me. It's just that this Nika King Arthur in the mid to late game, normally you think of him as the early game dominant sort of character. Nika didn't do a whole lot in the early game because the Nox shut him down. In the late game, though, I mean, he was really, really impressive. I mean, it was consistently chasing targets down. This is the pick on Lasbra I was talking about, where Lasbra turned around and tried to get too much offense off during this chase. I mean, how do you ever get away from him?
You just don't, honestly. If you're by yourself, you don't. You have to be able to be surrounding your teammates. I think if he keeps walking straight and he times his Strife at his feet instead of trying to 180 Strife, then he would have been A-okay, especially with how close his teammates were anyway. Dardez not having really the greatest performance on the Poseidon.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, look, Dardez just waited way too long to have Obsidian Shard in my mind. He kept the Spear of the Magus, eventually sold his boots for the Shard, but we saw how many times Eonic ended up getting away with 10 HP, 20 HP, I mean, very, very low on the HP numbers, and it's all because that Dardez just didn't have the necessary pen until later on in the game. Once he gets it, the game becomes a lot easier. So look at our post-game stats. Cherryo 4-2, Funballer 5-0 on this Soul pick, and something we didn't really touch on during picks and bans. The last pick Soul looks great against Weekend's Nemesis as well. Slow immune during Disapparate makes it a lot easier for you to survive.
I think that interview with Funballer was a foreshadowing of his performance today. It was silent but deadly, because we haven't really said his name in the cast, but he was doing so much damage throughout the game. You would think that he would have a way more because of how long the game lasted, but it was mostly because of Cherryo's engagement that this Hun Bats pick worked out really well. And in a best-of-5 set, Trifecta, looking and reflecting upon this game, might need to consider taking away Cherryo's Hun Bats.
Wowy with the top player damage in the entire game on this Hachiman, but it never... I don't know how much I really felt it.
It's got to be the oboe proc, if anything.
Yeah.
You know, the Eagle's Eye getting a lot of guaranteed confirmed hits when Eonic is diving the backline the way he has. It creates that buffer space for the backline to do work. And because of Wowy's damage and Lasbra's control on Discordia, I'm surprised that the frontline composition was a nemesis for Weekend. There needs to be a little bit more control out of that jungle role. It just wasn't bringing the team fighting aspect that Trifecta needed.
I mean, Trifecta had a lot of CC. There just wasn't any AoE at all. I mean, Discordia has a little bit, sure, but it's inconsistent. It doesn't do that much damage, especially when Lasbra's building full cooldown like he did. It is not going to be enough to do the absolute damage numbers that you needed. And Wowy was bringing damage, but like we said, it's mostly oboe procs when they're grouped up like that. We'll see what Trifecta want to do to adjust as we're ready for Game 2.